Well, most of South Africa's major universities are open for registration today, with students concerned about price increases in tuition, registration and accommodation fees as well. Last month, Higher Education, Science and Innovation Minister Dr. Blade Nzimande revealed the government has set aside a 3.8 billion rand initial capitalisation fund to support the missing middle students. The new comprehensive student funding model aims to support students, including those currently not supported by the NSFAS bursary and funding policy. Let's take this discussion further and look at other issues as well. For this, we're joined by former FEESMAS 4 leader of social justice activist Busi Seabe. Busi, good afternoon. Thanks for your time with us here on the SABC at this hour.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for having me. My sincerest apologies. I am actually on my way to meeting up with the student movement closest to me, and that's why we're having such an informal conversation now.
Busi, it's actually okay, because perhaps you could also give us a development after you've spoken and obviously seen what needs to be done in terms of assisting. So thank you for making time. Perhaps as we jump into this conversation, I wanted to look at the strides that have been taken, even your reaction to the 3.8 billion rand that had been set aside to fund the missing middle.
I will definitely say we appreciate the 3.8 billion that has been set aside. It is welcomed by students. It is definitely needed. When you look at the current increases, not only in fees, but in accommodation and registration, that 3.8 billion will go a long way in assisting students access higher education institutions. But more than anything else, what we are finding to be problematic on the ground and within the student movement and among students themselves is availability and access to institutions of higher learning. What we have done, unfortunately, as the student movement, is we have done an injustice to young people by, perpetuating the need for them to only, focus on institutions of higher learning like universities, and neglecting TVET colleges and other technical, institutions of higher learning that they could have accessed and can access at the moment. So, for instance, NSFAS has released a statement claiming that they have received approximately over 1.7 million applications, and of that 1.7 million, less than 1 million people have been approved for NSFAS, and that goes to show that although government is attempting to assist students with funding, the money that is currently allocated is not enough to accommodate the numbers of students that are going into institutions of higher learning. Moreover, we have a problem that there is no space in institutions of higher learning. And this is something that we must look to the ANC government about, in the sense that there have only been approximately 2, if not 3 universities that have been built since 1994, which goes to show the lack of interest when it comes to higher education and training. Because, when you look at a government that promised young people free education and promised young people, a brighter future in 1994, you would understand and you would consider them creating institutions of higher learning, apart from TVET colleges, as an instrument with which they can empower and help young people, which is not what we're seeing at the moment. So universities don't have enough space. Young people don't have money. NSFAS itself has even failed to pay the over 20,000 students that were being owed last year. So there are many issues that are coming out, in institutions of higher learning. And as a student movement and a student body, we need to come together to be able to analyze how we can effectively assist young people in accessing further education for those who would like to, and how we can, move people out of the sphere of assuming that institutions of higher learning like Wits University and UJ and University of Cape Town and Rhodes University are the only avenue that they can access in order to further develop themselves and to access the economy. We need to be able to produce or be able to suggest alternatives to institutions of higher learning, considering the numbers of young people that can actually access institutions of higher learning this year. We need to be able to speak to students who are returning as well and resolve a lot of the issues that they are currently undergoing in institutions of higher learning. So at the moment, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, especially by the student movement. And this work can only be done in conjunction with government, in conjunction with institutions of higher learning, SRCs, and other non-governmental organizations and civil society organizations that are willing to come to the forefront to resolve the issues around education. There is a clear disjuncture, and this has become even more apparent this year with students not being able to access the courses or access, the career fields that they'd like to go to because of their, matric results. And this has been an issue that Fees Must Fall has attempted to address in the past, to say that, the requirements that are put out by the Department of Basic Education do not meet the requirements that are necessary in higher education. And there seems to be a disjuncture there that no one is actively trying to resolve or deal with.
Busi, thank you for those sentiments. Let me come in there. You've spoken about exploring alternative options, access, as well as space, the number of institutions, given the population growth size, and just even the bachelor passes we've seen this year alone. I want to also look at the issue of registration fees. Some calling for it to be scrapped, following reports that institutions like the University of Witwatersrand, amongst others, received about 140,000 applications, each valued at 200 Rand. I mean, it accumulates to a substantial amount. Do you support these calls, or how would you view or weigh in on those concerns?
I mean, the institution at this particular point in time must consider two alternatives. It must either completely scrap registration fees in lieu of using, the application fee money that they received from, over 100,000 young people in this country, which amounts to over 2 million Rand, which can easily accommodate, the registration fee for current students, or the university can waiver the registration fee for young people to be able to pay a lot later on in the year, once they've been able to not only secure placement, but also to secure funding outside of NSFAS, as we understand that not everyone is going to be funded by NSFAS, and some people do need a little more time to acquire the funds. So there are alternatives that the university can engage on. Now, the question becomes, is there a will? Is there a political will on one end for the university to do this? Is there a will on the side of the university to want to accommodate as many students as possible, considering the socio-economic conditions that young people have been and continue to be subjected to in this country as the economy continues to fluctuate and young people continue to be locked out of not only the economy, but society as a whole? So the university does have alternatives, and it has means that, the Fees Must Fall movement has long suggested and proposed that they must now take into consideration. And if not, we might unfortunately see another uprising of the Fees Must Fall movement for the 6th year in a row since my term in 2015 and 2016. So when we look at registration fees, they are a very big hindrance. And to a large extent, a lot of people who aren't able to pay that registration fee might have their places taken and given to other people, which will create, a whole lot of animosity and anxiety amongst young people. So we can definitely understand the frustration that young people are going through, especially with regards to registration fees that they cannot afford. And the university, there's a lot that the universities can do.
I mean, there are many more questions and answers at this point. And just for the interest of time, given the major issues, the fault lines that exist in higher education space at large, what action will you be taking next? How will you hold government account? How will you hold universities account? How will you also assist those on the ground who obviously need support? You said you were on your way to support. Just walk us through where to from here as well, from your end.
At the moment, I'm on my way to meet up with some student leaders from the University of Johannesburg and Wits University as well, in order to engage them on the tangible and practical ways that we can assist students, especially students that are coming outside of the province of Gauteng, who are now stranded because they haven't been allocated accommodation, who don't have money to go back home, or who don't have money also to register. So in that meeting, we will be discussing possibly financial means of assisting students, and particularly looking at other student leaders within the country and seeing where they are currently in life, to see how they can assist in pulling funds together and possibly pulling bursaries together. So at this particular point in time, it's all hands on deck to try and make sure that a lot of people as possible are able to access institutions of higher learning, while we also try and encourage other youths to look at TVET colleges and other technical colleges as opposed to just trying to access universities. So there is situations where we're going to be assisting in providing accommodation as far as we possibly can. And this is where, the meeting with civil society organizations and NGOs will be very fruitful, as well as engaging with the private sector as well, that has in the past come to the forefront to assist not only the student movement, but particular students, that have now ascended to positions like parliament and so forth. So we're going to be able to see how we can draw all of our resources together as former student leaders to be able to assist the current student leadership in accessing and helping young people access institutions of higher learning or TVET colleges, or even access employment, because the route to success is not only through institutions of higher learning. We have to be able to explore all avenues as much as possible.
Busi, we're monitoring developments. I'm going to leave the conversation there for now. But thank you for your time at this hour and for weighing in. Busi Seabe is social justice activist, also former Fees Must Fall activist, weighing in. Access to higher education coming to the fore. This as registration gets underway across the country at various universities. We're looking at the strides that have been taken, but also some of the gaps and the fault lines that continue to exist within the higher education space, and some of the solutions on the cards at this point to assist those most vulnerable and most in need.